We good? We on? Well, hello and welcome to Table Talk. My name is Michael Scott and
I'm Allison. Hi, everybody. It's a beautiful day in the
Oh
neighborhood.
my gosh, it is.
So nice outside.
You know, just a weird thought. How cool would it have been if Mr. Rogers could have been here with us? Like, right?
Did you find your Mr. Rogers thingy?
So this is what my staff do to me. My staff. This is what the church staff do to me. I have this Mr. Rogers thing that Brian Swanson gave me, by the way.
Is it like an ornament?
It's a table topper. You know, it's a good conversation starter.
Okay.
And you push a button, and Mr. Rogers says one of his sayings. You know, like I don't know, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood or something like that. I don't know what he says all the time, but he's like, I like you just for being you, or just the way you are.
Just the way you are.
And I don't know if it was Abby, Amy, or Allison, or all three of them got together. You were just listening to yourself? Don't do it. Don't do it. And while I got you here, don't forget to share this. I'm going to share it right now. So, and I'm going to talk about what we're trying to do here is have real conversations about real issues. Sometimes we're going to have an extension of what I've preached about that Sunday. Sometimes it's stuff we come up with. Aaron Curry, Aaron, if you're watching right now, you had listed something or asked some questions. We are going to come back to that in our next series. So don't think I've forgotten about you. But I've been encouraging you to ask me questions, to ask questions on here, and we're just going to have real conversations about real topics. And so, I don't know, why isn't this working? I can't figure out.
I shared it. It actually worked for me today.
Really?
Yeah, I got it shared.
Like, it doesn't tell me we're live, and so, even though
Is it in your notifications?
I got this. See, are you guys having as much problems as I am right now? Because I know all of you that are watching are going to share this, right? So, I'm going to share it right now. I'm just putting hashtag sorry not sorry. Sorry not sorry. There we go.
We're going to talk about our favorite subject of having to apologize.
It's too late to apologize. Isn't that a song?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One Republic version.
You and I have no clue. You know me. I don't.
Republic.
Well, okay, One Republic. Good. Well, thank you for joining us. As everybody comes on, as everybody gets on to watch, the point of this is that we can have difficult conversations. So not just that's an extension of Sunday or a sermon or something like that, but that we have conversations about faith and our spirituality and who and what God is, and that we have difficult conversations about and around that and about real and relevant topics. And this week I talked about apologizing, right? Saying sorry, which led into this idea of repentance, which means, to turn, to shift, or to think differently after, right? These are some of the words in our Bible that we read about, these ancient words of what a true apology means. Because how many of you say you're sorry, and don't mean it? To diffuse the situation, or just because, I feel like for some people it's a reaction. Like you started the conversation, I'm sorry. Like that's just, it's not, there's no meaning behind it whatsoever. It's just a simple, I'm sorry.
We use it as a tool,
right.
It might not really be an apology, but a tool to get something or change something or make an uncomfortable situation
Dissipate, right? Or go, well, you think you are, but really. And so, like a lot of words we use, I feel like it's lost its meaning, because a true apology leads to, and if you watch Sunday, this idea of repentance, which means that we are going to turn or realign or change the thing that we're doing. So a true apology, I think, invites us into a space of change, right? And I think that's different, because often when we think of asking for, saying we're sorry or giving somebody an apology, we make that, about us, that they owe me, right, an apology. And, even though I believe we're to forgive people, I think a true apology, there's always action behind it, right? So the word that I can't think of right now for repentance, that I can't think of the Greek word.
The Greek word?
Yeah, anyway, it's fine. But to means to change afterwards. So after we do a thing, we think about it and we change the way we think about it. And so it's an invitation into a different kind of lifestyle. So
I gotta say, you were telling your story, and when you got to the part about them coming back and apologizing again, I was super impressed, because I was like, these boys, they're only 15?
13, 14.
Okay. And I'm like,
remember, they're not 16 because they can't drive.
Right, because they can't drive. Which I would have been so mad too.
Well, should I tell the story real quick in case some people haven't heard it?
Yeah, well, yes.
Well,
tell the story.
Well, just for a recap, in case you didn't watch Sunday, there was one of my kids, it's a long story, but the short story is they got in my car at night and were messing around in it, left my sunroof open, and it rained a little bit, my console got wet, and I thought my wife did it, so I was upset with her. It wasn't her. And when I went to ask my kids about it, the ones who did it, them and their friend, lied about it. And I just lost it. I slammed doors and was yelling. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, because I don't like people to lie to me. And so I just got to this place that was, I got a little ugly. And of course, in the moment, they were like, sorry, sorry, we won't do this again. Sorry, Mr. Scott. And what you expect in the heat of the moment, kind of, right?
Well, I was picturing you like being a little intimidating for these boys and like slamming the door.
Yeah.
And I would apologize too multiple times.
I'm sorry.
Out of fear, like
that's entirely not true. If you know Allison would have went.
Well,
you
true,
shut up.
True. But my 15-year-old self or my 14-year-old self
may have
probably would have been afraid.
Yeah. Well, and I talked about that. I realized that just because there was a wrong perpetrated against me, what do we often do when we're hurt or something's been violated in our system? We want to hurt others, right? And so I was on a mission. I made it about me. I got selfish, and I was going to let them know how wrong they were. Not that those things aren't important. You don't teach lessons, but
you justify your behavior because they did you wrong.
They're wrong. So now I'm right, even though I'm angry.
I got a license to be mad.
Yeah, we justify it. I mean, how many of you have done that? How many of you, actually, I want you to share your stories.
Tell us a story.
Tell us a story about a time that you were mad or maybe reacted or behaved in a way when you were wanting an apology from somebody and you ended up having to apologize for your behavior. I mean, how many of us have done that? Amy, what do you got? What are we getting here?
And then you blame them for making you have to apologize even though they were supposed to apologize first. Like it goes just cycle.
One Republic was onto something.
It's too late.
It's too late to apologize. It's too late. Okay, I won't do that again. All right. So during all this, they apologize, and I make them do a bunch of chores. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning, right? It's early, and later on in the day, I didn't ask for this, nothing. They'd already apologized. They both come down. Dad, Mr. Scott, we want to talk to you. I said, okay, so we went and sat on the couch. And hey, we just want you to know we're not going to do that again. We are sorry, and we're not going to do it again, right? So it's this idea that with an apology, there's action behind it. There's true change. And I would consider that at least a pathway to this idea of repentance, of changing behavior, right? And we talked about, so as Christians, we have this old book, this old book called the Bible, and it talks about these things called sin. And I grew up in a church where you were bad and you were sinful and you're going to hell. And this magic water of baptism saved you from all that stuff. Instead of, I believe, Jesus' early followers understood that he taught them to live a new way of life. And he uses this term sin, which is hamartia, which is to miss the mark, to go away from the path. And repentance is just this idea that we go back towards it. And I think apologies without any action are meaningless, right? Now, we're supposed to still forgive. I think we talked about that Sunday a little bit. But I don't know. What you tell me. What experience have you had?
Well, I was going to ask first, so when they did apologize the second time, did you do like the good Brene Brown suggested way of saying thank you for your apology, or did you turn it into a lesson? Because that's what I do, is I turn it into another lesson about how wrong you were, and we shouldn't do this next time, and here's the strategy for avoiding this next time. That's what I do with my kids.
Right, you don't even hear the apology. You're just formulating the teachable moment, right? That's what we used to call them, teachable moments.
Yes, you feel as a parent that if you do not seize those teachable moments, that you're a bad parent. But really, you're just teaching them to avoid apologizing because they don't want another lecture.
No, and I don't think I did.
Did you just say thank you for apologizing?
I think I did.
Oh, good job.
I don't know. I messed it up so bad earlier in the day
I can't remember.
that I wasn't going to do that again. Right? It's in that moment though that's when I apologized back to them. I said thank you, and you need to know that I overreacted, right, to a situation. And now growing up, I don't know if my parents ever even had the thought, or any adult, of apologizing to a child, because what were children? And I love my mom and dad. They were fine, but like More my dad than my mom. My dad was kind of, kids are to be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
And you would never
Catch them apologizing.
Oh, no. No, they would. If mom's watching right now, mom's like, that's not true. Mom, I'm not saying you, more dad.
Other parents, not you.
Yeah, not you. But there's a little bit of stereotype there, a little bit of, because she might be watching, I don't know, I invited her.
Well, you know why? Because you feel like, at least I feel like at times that if I apologizing, obviously I'm admitting I'm wrong, but you think that you're losing respect in the other person's eyes. But in reality, when I've had a heartfelt apology delivered to me where someone humbled themselves and truly apologized, I had more respect for them because it
Right.
takes courage, it takes self-confidence to be able to not be defensive about your mistakes. And so to me, it builds respect.
I
But
think
that's
so.
not how, I don't think that's how our parents saw it. Maybe.
well, and how often do we, even as adults, peer to peer, how often do we actually do it?
Truly apologize.
Usually it's positions of power and authority that are expecting apologies from, lesser than or not equals, right? How often? Now, I don't do it enough, but just so you all know, Allison and Amy keep this chart, and they just mark down every time I say I'm wrong, and there's a single mark on there, and so.
Oh my gosh.
That's not true.
Now's a good time to see what the audience is saying. Amy, I saw something about karaoke and I'm like, what?
Oh, too late to apologize?
I don't know, maybe.
Yes. Chuck said there's the karaoke segment I asked for last week.
Yeah, he did ask for a karaoke segment. That's so great. I forgot about
I
that.
think you can do better.
I know I can do better.
Erin said that was one of her favorite songs, though.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What questions you guys have about apologizing or sorry or forgiveness? We didn't touch too much on this on Sunday, but this idea that, that somebody's asking Jesus, how many times do I forgive somebody? And the notion was, 7 times? And Jesus is like, no, 70 times 7. And so, this is why Amy and Allison keep a chart, because once I hit that 490 mark, they're
We're
done.
done.
I get no more apologies,
Peace
or I
out.
get no more forgiveness. And no, that's not true. That's hyperbole, or that's an extreme situation. Jesus is saying, you always forgive. With the caveat of sometimes forgiving somebody means the end of a relationship, right? I mean, that means that doesn't mean you have to go on and keep being hurt or allowing somebody to do that. So what questions do you all have? What do you want to know about? I want this time to be conversational, but I want you guys to chime in. What do you want to know? On Sunday mornings, y'all can't ask me questions. And often afterwards, people always ask me, like I had 2 people this week after the sermon ask me about a thing, and that's because I say stupid stuff sometimes, or I say stuff that comes out wrong, because I don't script my sermons, and so I try to preach in a moment with notes, but they're not scripted, and so sometimes I say something, I'm like, I didn't mean it like that, I meant it like this. And so, what are your questions? Any questions? Crickets? Chirps? Nothing? Amy's not saying a word, just so you all know.
No questions so far. I mean, there's some great comments.
Okay.
Erin was talking about a text that she just got 30 seconds ago from one of her daughter's friends, and it was an apology. And Erin is saying that the person that was apologizing was embarrassed, and she said, no, don't be embarrassed, it takes courage.
Yeah.
And so Erin said after table talk is over, she's going to get in her truck and go face to face with that person and give her a hug. She's proud of her.
I love that.
Sorry.
Isn't it nice that we can text an apology though now?
No! Well, I guess it's a start.
Sometimes
should
it's
say
nice,
that.
it's better than nothing.
I want to see somebody's eyes, right? I want to see, right? Because so here's the thing, right? We use this word, I'm sorry, but if it's in a text, you don't see the
Are
body
you
language,
really
you don't see the
sorry?
eyes, you don't
Yeah.
see the feeling, the way they say it,
Yeah.
Was it sorry? Or was it hashtag sorry, not sorry? Or was it a true I'm sorry,
My
right?
problem is when I get emotional about a subject, and any emotion sometimes, like I can just start crying, like if I'm having a vulnerable moment where I have to apologize. And I hate that feeling of crying and your little shins quivering and it's the ugly cry and you're trying to keep yourself together. Like I will avoid that at all costs.
Allison's not a control freak at all. And so, it's okay to want to be in control of your emotions, that's fine.
I try, it doesn't always
Look at her,
work.
she got real proper. She's just like, I'm in control. Do y'all struggle with that though? I mean, this whole idea of vulnerability, you have to be super vulnerable. And I'm going to define vulnerable, and at least in a moment of an apology. When you go to somebody and you're putting yourself out there saying, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I'm going to change. I mean, we've all experienced the wrath or the aftermath of somebody who's not having it, right?
They're not over it yet, and so they're mad and they let it out.
You're a jerk,
Yeah.
no, you're wrong, right? And often the statements they say are true. Like the things I was saying to the kids was true, but it was done in anger, this anger. And so actually, we're going to talk about this week. I'm going to be talking about more than just apology. We're going to be talking about how do our words affect one another? How do our words, now, and I'll get into some of this, but like, with love languages, words of affirmation. I'm not a words of affirmation person. Unless you don't like me and you tell me that, then all of a sudden I'm a words of affirmation person. Then I need you to affirm that you like me. And I don't like it when people don't like me. I don't do well with it. And
most of us care, I think.
Yeah, do you? I feel like you let it roll off your back. You're like, whatever, they don't like me.
It depends on, honestly, this is bad, but it depends on the person.
Fair, okay.
I mean, some people you have ultimate respect for, so it really stings when you think they don't like you, but then that's bad. I should respect everybody. But some people, maybe I haven't been in relationship with them enough to have built that respect up in my mind, and so then if they don't like me, I'm like, eh.
Well, I always say it's really hard to hate somebody if you don't first love them. Think about that for a minute.
True.
Right?
Because you don't know them enough to hate them, really.
You may hate an idea of who you think they are, but how can you truly hate somebody if you don't truly know them and love them
There's an
first?
actual question on here.
Oh, we got a question.
Yes, excellent questions. Bruna is asking, does forgiving mean you're letting someone off the hook?
This is a hard one.
And then what if it's unforgivable?
See, I was just listening to Brene Brown's podcast this morning, and she made the statement that if this is within the context of a healthy relationship, that we're talking about how to apologize appropriately and then how to receive that apology appropriately. And she actually said, which I don't know if you agree with this, she actually said there are times when it's not like you shouldn't forgive. And I was like, really? It was this lady she had on her podcast, a guest who had written a book.
Okay.
Harriet something. Anyway.
Tubman.
The question was, no. But the question was, are there times when it's not forgivable? And I would say maybe extreme cases, but she says mostly it's within the context of a healthy relationship that we're talking about extending that grace for the over and over, the change that's slow, right? And the change that requires time, and we're going to keep falling down and making mistakes. But not when you're at risk of being hurt, I think emotionally, or of course physically, or...
Right.
So
I think... So we're talking about maybe a little bit of two different definitions of what forgiveness is. And so the way we were talking Sunday about it is that I believe forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you. So the person granting, the one that's been hurt. And I think if we don't forgive, and what I mean by forgive is to let go of a thing. Mm-hmm. So forgiveness is not letting go and letting God. I'm not saying
letting go in your mind.
Correct.
Like for you.
Letting go and dealing with it.
Yeah.
Because we have to make healthy decisions and choices. But I would say that's about you and your personal psyche, and that's important to let that go, because when we don't let it go, we talk about people having control over us, that we give other people control, and I think when we don't let that go, we give that more power than it should have maybe. And so maybe the way I would define forgiveness is I would say we always forgive. Always forgive. That means to let go of the thing. My caveat is then sometimes that means, though, in that process of forgiveness, the relationship ends and you will not be in a relationship with that person, but you've let it go, or you're in the process of letting it go. Because I'm very aware, if you've been hurt, had extreme hurt and pain, there is no, I just let it go, right? I mean, honestly, even in the smaller stuff, there is no, we talk about a journey. This is a journey. The journey of forgiveness is a long journey. I mean, it doesn't just happen. It's like repentance or whatever. Anything we talk about is about a journey and a path, and then we move along that path, and sometimes, like the game of sorry, we reset, right? We get to a point and somebody hurts us and we go all the way back to the beginning. And so what I would say is, I may not agree with that, but I think I see what she's saying. Brene Brown saying, and so the question though from Bruna was, what if it's unforgivable? Bruna, here's the thing. Bruna, what's unforgivable? That would be my question. In my mind, if I define forgiveness as the thing that we let go of, what is there a thing that you could think of that we wouldn't want to let go under that scenario?
That you wouldn't want to hold on to.
Correct.
To certain things, only because you've seen that where it just festers and makes you bitter.
And yeah,
And that hurts you.
Right. That's because we're giving it more power than
Right.
it should have, and so the thing still has a grip on us.
Uh-huh.
And I'm saying forgiveness is the process of letting that go. And we did a series a couple years ago called Forgiveness on the book. Desmond Tutu wrote it, right? I'm trying to remember what it was. Did Bruna, are you?
She said, "Let it go."
Let it go.
Yes,
let
more
it go. I'm not gonna put up with the crap anymore.
Oh,
okay.
yes. See, but
that's
that's real. You don't necessarily have to keep putting up with it. If it's crossed a line and a boundary in your life, I think it's healthy sometimes to say, "No more." You know, I'm not
Yes.
mad, I ain't mad at you, but you're not going to keep doing this to me. You
Right.
know, I think that's okay.
Yeah, so then we get into the whole boundary conversation of, because some people think, well, I'm being, you don't, sometimes it's appropriate to put yourself in vulnerable positions. And when I say vulnerable positions, I mean when you're asking for forgiveness, that's a vulnerable position if somebody can hurt you. I would never ask you to put yourself as the one that's been hurt back into a vulnerable position. That's not healthy. So the boundary becomes, and then if you're asking for forgiveness and you've asked for it once, like I don't think you have any, and somebody lashes back out at you, they hurt you then and they become the perpetrator. I don't think you have any moral obligation to continue to go back and to keep asking for forgiveness. You've said your piece. I think you can walk away from that situation.
But you still have to keep, if you want to stay in the relationship, you still have to keep doing the
Correct.
things. Like you have to keep humbling yourself, keep trying to change, all that stuff that comes along
Right.
with a true apology.
If that person isn't going to hurt you. Go, yeah, Amy, go.
Because Cindy asked the question that goes along with this, what do you do when they keep apologizing for the same thing but don't stop doing the same
Right.
thing?
Then it's
Oh.
not a real, to me, it's not a real turn. And so then only you can decide in that relationship what crosses the boundary for you. Like no one can decide that for you, I feel like.
So I'll talk, kind of like Sunday, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. To the person who is hurting the other person, if you're a person that keeps apologizing and keeps doing the same thing, I want you to look in the mirror and say, hey, my path is not a path. My path is a circle or a cycle of whatever it is I'm struggling with, and I keep circling back around to it. Because that's our norm, right? We all find ourselves in these cycles of whatever it is, violence, anger, hate. And so if you're that person and you can be self-aware enough to know that, ask yourself some hard questions. What do I need to do in my life to make real change to not get there? And I'm a fan of I think everybody should go to a counselor to talk through your stuff, to talk through, I believe that our parents all messed us up and we have something, I shouldn't say it, that's placing blame. We all have stuff from our childhood that defined who we are. And we have to work through that. And we should also realize that if you have children, your children are going down that same path and we have to help them through the same thing. So if you're the person that's hurting, look at yourself and make those changes. If you are somebody keeps apologizing to you for the same thing and you don't see any progress, like it doesn't get better, because I do believe it is a slow process, right? It's never, and if it does change like that, what I believe is that means it's just jump to something else. Right, so somebody, I don't know, give me an example of something that somebody would do to you. They hurt you, right? I think it's a slow progressive change, and some of it will happen, but we need to give it space to change over time. Now, if you feel like it's never changed, I would then say we need to set a healthy boundary,
Like
right?
you should be seeing progress.
Correct. There should be a progress away from from it, and knowing that it will just take time. Now, if somebody's harming you, I'm not talking about that kind of boundary.
Right.
I'm talking about you guys argue about the same thing over and over again. And I've been very open. I have triggers, right? I tend to get aggressive and angry in conversations sometimes. These two have experienced it, both Amy and Allison. And so that's something that I work on, and I hope it's fewer and less in between that I do those things. But I know that's my default. So what happens is you find yourself in a situation, you find that whatever's happening is what we call these triggers, right? Where you're starting to react that way. We have to learn how to control that. Now, what we try to do though is we try to be so if you're the other party, right, the other side of that, we try to control that person, and that's impossible.
Right.
So when they end in a trigger, like, oh, you're in a trigger, you need to calm down. How does that work?
That does not work.
If you ever said that to your partner or spouse, if you just calm down, or
Stop being so sensitive.
just calm.
You're being a little too sensitive. That is not a part of a good apology.
That
Just
doesn't.
so you know.
No,
Oh
don't.
wait, Erin said something that I thought was cool. She said multiple apologies for the same thing. Don't be sorry anymore. Be different. I love
Yes.
that. That's it.
And maybe a true apology, maybe you say the words, but maybe you don't say the words for a while. Maybe you just work on you.
Right.
Because the words lose their meaning. And I think if you've said it and you keep saying it, maybe you actually don't say it. Maybe instead of saying the words, you work on it and say
More
it.
than words. We're just gonna keep making old song references.
Okay, we could make singing a part of this.
No, just say no. Okay, Amy's got something to say.
As part of Erin's comment, she said, in reference to the person making the same mistake and saying they're sorry over and over, she said, I love you, but making the same mistake over and over holds you back. Learn and grow.
Love it. Because you care about that person and you want that for them and you. Like, you don't want them to keep hurting you, but you also want them to see
Right.
and mature and grow beyond it if you're in a loving relationship.
And if anybody ever comes to you and says, I'm sorry and I need help, how many of you have experienced that? Like, I don't know how to fix this thing. I think, now you don't fix them. Don't fix them. It's not your job to fix a person. But you can assist them. Go to a counselor. Because I feel like when we try to fix each other, we're not equipped to do that most of the time. Right? And so I think that can cause more damage than harm. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Will you help me on my path? Will you be, this is a churchy word, kind of an accountability partner or something like that. Like that's okay.
They keep you in check.
Yeah, that's fine. But we are not fixers of each other.
Right. We're not licensed therapists.
Correct.
We don't know the right things to say. And
Right.
we're not unbiased.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a stake in the game in that relationship.
Yeah, I'd say we're going to persuade it
Did
or
I
influence.
say that right? A stake in the game? I don't know if that's the right thing to say.
Don't we say skin in the game?
Maybe, yes.
Yeah,
I think it's
skin in the
skin,
game.
not
Yeah, that's
steak.
it.
But anyway.
I mean, who doesn't like a good steak in the game? Hashtag that.
Yeah,
steak in the game.
Steak in the game.
Yeah.
We manipulate those sometimes
Yeah.
when we have a skin in the game.
Wait,
Did I say that right?
Now it's us
Do you
skin
say
in the
us
game.
Skin?
I have a piece of skin
You
in
just
the
say
game.
skin in the game?
Not all the skin, just some skin.
Okay,
Wow.
so there's some good comments.
Okay.
Chuck was saying he really likes the explanation that you're giving because change can take time and he's more apt to forgive if there's an obvious effort to change. Sean had a comment. He said he has a situation where no one apologized to him when things happened, and now things are backfiring on that person and they're asking Sean for help.
Okay.
And so
That's rough when they
What's
don't
his reaction?
apologize. When you don't get the apology, that's rough.
So let's talk about grace for a minute. Okay.
Do we have a minute? It's like 2.
Oh, okay.
We have 2 minutes. Talk about grace for 2 minutes.
So, grace, and in our faith, we talk about God lends us grace. And what that means is that there's an energy, there's this thing that loves us there's no precursor to it. You don't have to take any measures, you don't have to do anything. But there's this thing that just loves us and includes us and accepts us as we are. But that same thing that loves, includes, and accepts us also pulls and tugs and pushes us to be better people. And this idea of grace, that I think you first have to experience grace in order for the tug and the pull to move you along down the path. And so what I would say to you, Sean, is that even though somebody didn't ask you for forgiveness, but there's this idea that we grant this idea of grace and we grant that person forgiveness and love and accept it as they are. And that sometimes that can change a person, even though they didn't ask for it, to grant that to them, right? So to try to work on that relationship, as long as it's not hurting you and super unhealthy, that can be part of somebody's path to understanding and realizing and recognizing grace. And I think once you recognize that, and of course in the Methodist way, we talk about this in sanctifying grace and justifying grace and prevenient grace, all these weird terms about grace. But the gist of it is, once we experience that grace, and I believe that we are agents of grace, it's our job to share that grace with other people, that act alone can pull them down a path to maybe change. Doesn't always, but I would invite you to that space of grace with them, as long as it's not hurting you. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Hmm.
Maybe? We can talk about grace for a long
Yeah,
time.
that's a big subject.
How are we at 30 minutes?
I know.
All right. Listen, thank you guys for being a part of this. Thank you for your questions. Feel free to ask us more questions. If you listen to Sundays or you get the basic gist of the idea and you want to know more, like these are all, this is the kind of stuff I want to talk about. Allison does a list of stuff that we can talk about, but I want to talk about the things that you guys want to talk about. So please continue this. Tell us your stories, send us your questions, and we'll hash it out. And some days, I don't know, we may even sing. We may sing the answer to you.
No.
Thank you for joining us at Table Talk. Allison, you have anything? Any closing remarks? Any closing remarks?
No, just thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy your lunch. We're glad you showed up today.
All right. Peace.